The piercing wail of a cow's desperate moo cut through the humid Texas air, jolting Senator John Kennedy from his morning coffee on the porch of his family ranch. It wasn't just any sound, it was a cry of anguish, raw and haunting, echoing from the livestock auction down the road. Curiosity and a gnawing sense of duty pulled him from his chair, his polished boots kicking up dust as he strode toward the commotion. There, amid the clamor of bidders and the stench of hay, he saw her, a skeletal black cow, her ribs protruding like the bars of a cage, her eyes sunken with exhaustion. The auctioneer's voice droned on, calling her a lost cause, but John's heart clenched. He didn't know why, but something in that frail creature's gaze begged for mercy. Against the advice of his ranch hands and the raised eyebrows of the crowd, he raised his paddle, his voice steady as he outbid the last reluctant farmer. For $50, a steal for any cow, let alone one on death's door, he brought her home, driven not by logic but by a compassion he couldn't explain. Back at the ranch, John's wife, Margaret, a warm-hearted woman with a knack for nurturing, met him at the gate with a mix of concern and amusement. "John, what have you done now?" she asked, her hands on her hips as she surveyed the emaciated animal stumbling out of the trailer. The kids, 12-year-old Sarah and 9-year-old Tommy, rushed over, their eyes wide with a blend of pity and excitement. The cow, whom they nicknamed Shadow, for her dark coat and ghostly demeanor, was a puzzle. The vet, Drive, Ellis, arrived within the hour, shaking his head as he examined her. "She's malnourished, dehydrated, and likely has an infection," he said grimly. "I'll do what I can, but don't get your hopes up." John nodded, his jaw tight, already steeling himself for the possibility of loss. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, Shadow became a quiet fixture in their lives. Margaret devised a feeding schedule, mixing nutrient-rich supplements into her feed, while Sarah and Tommy took turns brushing her matted fur, whispering encouragements. John, a man accustomed to political battles, found himself oddly invested, checking on her each night under the starlit sky, wondering if he'd made a foolish mistake. The challenges mounted quickly. Shadow's recovery was slow, and the ranch's finances were already stretched thin from a recent drought. John's staff grumbled about the cost of her care, special feed, vet visits, and medication adding up to hundreds of dollars. "She's eating us out of house and home," one hand muttered, and John couldn't argue. At the state capitol, his colleagues teased him mercilessly, dubbing him the cowboy senator, and questioning his judgment. Even Margaret, though supportive, hinted at the strain, her tired eyes betraying the sleepless nights she spent tending to Shadow. The cow's condition fluctuated, some days she'd stand tall, munching contentedly, only to collapse the next, her breathing shallow. Dr. Ellis warned of a possible underlying illness, perhaps something chronic, and suggested they consider putting her down to end her suffering. The idea tore at John's heart. He'd bought her out of compassion, not to play God, but the pressure was mounting. Late one night, as rain pattered against the barn, he sat beside Shadow, her head resting in his lap, and made a silent vow, he'd fight for her as long as she fought for herself. The turning point came unexpectedly in the third month. Sarah, ever the observant one, noticed something odd while feeding Shadow one crisp morning. "Dad, look," she exclaimed, pointing to the cow's side. John rushed over, his breath catching as he saw it, a slight bulge, rhythmic and unmistakable. Dr. Ellis was summoned again, and after a thorough examination, he delivered the astonishing news: Shadow was pregnant. The revelation stunned them all. How had a cow so frail carried a calf? The vet explained that her malnutrition had masked the pregnancy, her body prioritizing survival over signs of life within. The family rallied with renewed vigor. Margaret adjusted the diet to support both mother and unborn calf, while Tommy crafted a makeshift sign, "Baby on board," to hang above Shadow's stall. John threw himself into research, consulting experts on high-risk pregnancies in livestock, determined to give this new life a chance. The ranch hands, once skeptical, pitched in, their grumbling replaced by a shared sense of purpose. The birth, when it came, was a tense affair. On a chilly November evening, with the family gathered in the barn, Shadow labored for hours. John held her head, whispering words of encouragement, while Margaret and Dr. Ellis worked to ensure a safe delivery. At midnight, a tiny, wobbly calf emerged, black like her mother, but with a white patch on her forehead that glimmered under the lantern light. They named her Hope, a fitting tribute to the miracle they'd witnessed. Shadow, though still weak, licked her calf with a tenderness that brought tears to John's eyes. The ranch erupted in celebration, the hands cheering as Sarah and Tommy danced around the stall. The financial strain hadn't vanished, but the emotional payoff was immense. Word spread, and soon, neighbors and even some of John's political allies visited, marveling at the story of the sick cow and her secret. As months passed, Shadow regained her strength, her coat gleaming under the Texas sun, and Hope grew into a playful calf, a symbol of resilience. John's reputation took an unexpected turn, his compassion became a talking point, earning him respect beyond the Senate floor. The experience reshaped him, softening the edges of his pragmatic nature. One evening, as he watched Shadow and Hope graze together, he turned to Margaret and said, "Sometimes, the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards." The story of John Kennedy and his sick cow became a local legend, a tale of empathy triumphing over doubt. By the end, the inspiring message was clear: compassion, even in the face of uncertainty, can uncover hidden miracles and unite a community, proving that the heart often knows what the mind cannot yet see.